April 16, 1974. A quiet wooded area off Route 124 in Marlborough, New Hampshire. Someone stumbles upon human remains that would baffle investigators for over 5 decades. The body belonged to a young woman, estimated to be between 18 and 48 years old. No identification, no missing person reports that matched, no name. For 51 years, she was simply known as Jane Doe. But here's where this story gets absolutely mind-blowing. Just 3 days ago, on July 9, 2025, New Hampshire authorities made a breakthrough that would finally give this mystery woman her name back. Nancy Gail Erickson, a 21-year-old registered nurse who had vanished without a trace in October 1973. Now, you might be thinking, how does someone disappear for over 50 years with no one officially reporting them missing? Well, that's exactly what happened here, and the answer will shock you. Nancy's story begins in 1951, when she was born in Bayshore, New York. She grew up in Elmira, New York, where she developed a passion for helping others. This drive led her to Corning Community College, where she earned her nursing degree between 1971 and 1972. Fresh out of college, with her whole life ahead of her, Nancy made a decision that would change everything. In 1972, she packed her bags and moved to Tampa, Florida, to join her mother and siblings. Landing a job at Tampa General Hospital, Nancy threw herself into her work as a registered nurse. But here's what's truly heartbreaking about this case. According to her siblings, Nancy was struggling. The emotional toll of her nursing work was overwhelming her. Day after day, she witnessed suffering, pain, and loss. It was eating away at her mental health. Then, in 1973, Nancy made a decision that would lead to her disappearance. She abruptly left Tampa with nothing but a duffel bag and no known destination. Her siblings believed this wasn't a planned escape, but rather a desperate attempt to flee the emotional burden she was carrying. Before we continue with Nancy's final days, I need you to pause for a moment. If this story is already giving you chills, and you want to see how advanced DNA technology is solving decades-old mysteries, smash that like button right now. These breakthrough cases are happening more frequently than ever before, and you definitely don't want to miss future updates. Now back to Nancy's story. After leaving Tampa, she somehow ended up in Vermont. But what happened next reveals just how desperate her situation had become. On October 2nd, 1973, Nancy was arrested in Bellows Falls, Vermont, for stealing a car from nearby Putney. When she appeared before the judge, her explanation was both heartbreaking and telling. She told the court that she was trying to visit friends in White River Junction when her car ran out of gas. She claimed to have only 6 cents to her name. Think about that for a moment. A trained nurse, someone who had dedicated her life to helping others, was so desperate that she resorted to stealing a car because she literally had no money for gas. The judge sentenced Nancy to probation, and she was sent to live at a halfway house in Brattleboro. But Nancy wasn't done trying to rebuild her life. She found work at the Brattleboro Retreat, a psychiatric hospital, while living at the community house. For a brief moment, it seemed like Nancy might have found some stability. But then, on October 30th, 1973, everything changed. Nancy abruptly left her job at the Brattleboro Retreat and never returned to the community house. She vanished without a trace, leaving behind no clues about where she was going or what she planned to do. Here's where the story takes an even more tragic turn. Nancy's family tried to find her. They mailed clothes to the halfway house, but the package was returned. When they contacted the facility to find out why, that's when they learned Nancy had checked out and never came back. The family reported her missing, but this is where the system failed Nancy in the most devastating way possible. Here's the absolutely shocking part that will make your blood run cold. When Nancy's family reported her missing back in the 1970s, somehow the report never made it into the official system. For decades, there was no official missing person report for Nancy Gail Erickson. None. Can you imagine? A young woman vanishes, her family reports it, but bureaucratic failures mean she's never officially listed as missing. Meanwhile, just months after Nancy disappeared, on April 16, 1974, her body was discovered in those woods in Marlborough, New Hampshire. Investigators believed she had died in the late fall of 1973, which would place her death right around the time she vanished from Brattleboro. But here's the cruel irony. While Nancy's family was searching for their missing daughter and sister, her body was lying in a morgue, unidentified. The investigation hit dead end after dead end. Without modern forensic technology, investigators had very little to work with. They estimated her age, documented what little physical evidence they had, and filed the case away. Jane Doe became just another unsolved mystery in the files of the New Hampshire State Police. Years passed. Nancy's father died in 1985, 8 years after his daughter's disappearance, never knowing what happened to her. He went to his grave wondering if Nancy was still alive somewhere, perhaps struggling with mental health issues, perhaps living under a different name. The not knowing must have been absolutely torturous, but Nancy's siblings never gave up hope. They carried the weight of her disappearance for decades, always wondering, always hoping for answers. And then, in 2021, something remarkable happened. Nancy's family made a decision that would finally set the wheels of justice in motion. They contacted the Brattleboro Police Department and officially reported Nancy as missing. This was 48 years after her disappearance. Think about that. Nearly half a century later, Nancy Gail Erickson was finally, officially, listed as a missing person. Detective Sergeant Kelly LaPointe of the New Hampshire State Police said something that perfectly captures the significance of this moment. After years of work on this case, putting a name to Nancy Gail Erickson is incredibly meaningful. It's more than solving a mystery. It's restoring her identity and honoring the life she lived. She was never forgotten. But here's where modern science becomes the hero of this story. Between 2022 and 2024, forensic experts began working with DNA samples from Nancy's siblings. The New Hampshire State Police Forensic Laboratory, working alongside NamUs, Bode Technology, and the University of North Texas Health Science Center, began the painstaking process of comparing DNA from the unidentified remains found in 1974 with the genetic material provided by Nancy's family. The technology that made this identification possible simply didn't exist in 1974. DNA profiling wasn't developed until the 1980s, and it took decades more before it became sophisticated enough to work with degraded samples from remains that had been buried for years. Now here's where this case gets even more incredible. The forensic testing process took nearly 2 years. 2 years of careful analysis, cross-referencing, and verification. But when the results came back, they were definitive. The DNA from the remains found in Marlborough, New Hampshire in 1974 was a perfect match for Nancy Gail Erickson. On July 9, 2025, just 3 days ago, New Hampshire Attorney General John Formella, alongside New Hampshire State Police Colonel Mark Hall and Brattleboro Police Chief Norma Hardy, made the announcement that would finally give Nancy her name back. But solving the mystery of Jane Doe's identity was only the beginning. Now investigators face an even bigger challenge. How did Nancy Gail Erickson end up dead in those woods in Marlborough, New Hampshire? What happened during those final weeks of her life? Here's what we know for certain. Nancy was last seen alive on October 30th, 1973, when she left the Brattleboro Retreat and the community house. The drive from Brattleboro, Vermont to Marlborough, New Hampshire is only about 20 miles. It would have taken her less than 30 minutes to make that journey. But why would Nancy have gone to Marlborough? Did she know someone there? Was she trying to get to another destination and something went wrong? These are the questions that investigators are now desperately trying to answer. If you're as captivated by this breakthrough as I am, and you want to stay updated on the latest developments in cold cases being solved through DNA technology, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Cases like Nancy's are being solved every month now, and the technology is only getting better. The investigation has now shifted from identification to determination of cause and manner of death. This is where the case becomes even more complex. After 51 years, Physical evidence is extremely limited. The scene where Nancy's body was found has been altered by decades of weather, vegetation growth, and natural decomposition. But investigators aren't giving up. They're reaching out to anyone who might have known Nancy during those final months of her life. They want to hear from former employees of the Brattleboro Retreat who worked there in 1973. They're looking for residents of the community house from that same time period. They want to connect with students who attended Corning Community College between 1971 and 1972, and staff members who worked at Tampa General Hospital from 1972 to 1973. Every person who knew Nancy, no matter how briefly, might hold a piece of the puzzle that could finally explain what happened to her. Here's what makes Nancy's case so haunting. We now know who she was, but the circumstances of her death remain shrouded in mystery. Think about this timeline. Nancy left her job and residence on October 30th, 1973. Her body was discovered on April 16th, 1974. That's nearly 6 months during which Nancy's remains lay undiscovered in those woods. But here's the detail that will send chills down your spine. Investigators believed Nancy had died in the late fall of 1973, which means her death likely occurred shortly after she disappeared from Brattleboro. So for almost 6 months, Nancy's body was lying in those woods through a harsh New England winter, while her family desperately searched for any sign of her. The location where Nancy was found raises even more questions. The wooded area off Route 124 in Marlborough isn't exactly a place someone would stumble upon by accident. It's secluded, hidden from the main road. Did Nancy go there voluntarily? Was she brought there by someone else? These are the questions that keep investigators up at night. What's particularly troubling is Nancy's mental state during those final weeks. Remember, she had a history of depression and had been previously hospitalized for her condition. The emotional toll of her nursing work had driven her to leave Tampa abruptly. She had been arrested for car theft, was living in a halfway house, and was essentially starting her life over from scratch. But here's what's remarkable about Nancy's story. Despite everything she was going through, she was still trying to help others. She found work at the Brattleboro Retreat, a psychiatric hospital. Even in her darkest moments, Nancy was drawn to caring for people who were struggling with mental health issues, just like she was. The staff at the Brattleboro Retreat might hold crucial information about Nancy's final days. What was her mood like? Did she mention any plans to leave? Was she in contact with anyone from her past? Did she seem afraid or worried about something? Similarly, the residents of the community house where Nancy was living might have insights into her daily routine, her habits, her fears. In halfway houses, residents often form close bonds. They share their stories, their struggles, their hopes for the future. Someone might remember a conversation with Nancy that seemed insignificant at the time, but could be crucial now. Now here's where this case takes on a sense of urgency that's absolutely gripping. New Hampshire's Cold Case Unit isn't just looking for casual information. They're building a comprehensive picture of Nancy's final weeks, and they believe someone out there has the key piece of information that could solve this case. The technology that identified Nancy is the same technology that's solving cold cases across the country. Genetic genealogy, advanced DNA analysis, and sophisticated databases are bringing closure to families who have waited decades for answers. But technology can only take investigators so far. The human element, the memories, the connections, the small details that people remember, these are what ultimately solve cases. Think about what Nancy's siblings have endured. For 51 years, they've carried the weight of not knowing what happened to their sister. They've wondered if she was still alive somewhere, struggling with mental illness, perhaps unable to contact them. They've imagined countless scenarios, each one more heartbreaking than the last. Now they know Nancy is gone, but they still don't know how or why she died. Was it suicide? Was it an accident? Was it something more sinister? The not knowing continues, but now it's focused on these final, crucial questions. Detective Sergeant Kelly LaPointe, put it perfectly when she said, "Now the focus turns to understanding how and why she died." This isn't just about solving a cold case. This is about giving Nancy's family the complete truth they deserve after 5 decades of uncertainty. The investigation is also significant because it represents a new chapter in how we solve cold cases. The combination of family persistence, technological advancement, and dedicated law enforcement creates a powerful force for justice. Nancy's case might not have been solved without her family's decision to officially report her missing in 2021. That single act set in motion a chain of events that led to her identification. If Nancy's story has moved you, if you believe that every victim deserves justice, no matter how much time has passed, then I need you to do something right now. Like this video to help spread awareness about cold cases being solved through DNA technology. Share it with someone who might have information about Nancy's case, and subscribe to stay updated on breakthrough cases like this one. Every share, every like, every comment helps keep these stories alive and brings us closer to the truth. As we reach the end of Nancy's story, we're left with both closure and questions. Nancy Gail Erickson is no longer Jane Doe. She has her name back, her identity restored, her life honored. But the mystery of her final days remains unsolved. If you knew Nancy during her time at Corning Community College, if you worked alongside her at Tampa General Hospital, if you were a patient or staff member at the Brattleboro Retreat in 1973, or if you lived at the community house during that crucial time period, investigators need to hear from you. Even the smallest detail could be significant. Did Nancy mention being afraid of someone? Did she talk about wanting to go somewhere specific? Did she seem to have money problems beyond what was obvious? Did anyone offer to help her or give her a ride anywhere? The New Hampshire Cold Case Unit is actively investigating Nancy's death, and they're asking anyone with information to contact them at 800-525-555 or email coldcase@unitidos.nh.gov. You can also submit tips online at www.doj.nh.gov criminal cold case. Nancy's case reminds us that behind every cold case statistic is a real person with a real family who deserves answers. She was a young woman trying to help others while battling her own demons. She was a daughter, a sister, a friend. She mattered then, and she matters now. The technology that solved Nancy's case is solving similar mysteries across the country. Families who have waited decades for answers are finally getting closure. But it takes more than technology. It takes people who care enough to speak up, to remember, to share what they know. Nancy Gail Erickson's story isn't over. The next chapter is being written by the investigators who refuse to give up and by anyone who might have information about her final days. Justice delayed is not justice denied, and Nancy's case proves that the truth, no matter how long it takes, will eventually come to light. If you have any information about Nancy Gail Erickson's disappearance or death, please contact the New Hampshire Cold Case Unit. Nancy's family has waited 51 years for complete answers. Let's help them find the truth.